If you did not know, November is National Diabetes Awareness Month, and in celebration, yes, I said celebration of that month, every single day in November, I will be uploading a video to YouTube talking about various topics from my diagnosis to certain aspects that have helped me on my journey to just random musings about diabetes related things. If you would have asked me to celebrate Diabetes Awareness Month years ago, I would have laughed in your face and I would have said, why would I ever celebrate this stupid disease? And while I still get frustrated sometimes, I find that I love using this month of November, not only to spread awareness, right? Diabetes Awareness Month, but really to celebrate myself. And if you are watching and you have type 1 diabetes or you care for somebody with type 1 diabetes, to celebrate that, because it takes so much hard work, effort, perseverance, dedication every single day of our life, and we deserve a little bit of celebration. What better way to start this 30 days in November? Good. 31's a lot. 30's fine, but 31 is a lot. To start off this 30-day series, I really hope it's 30 now, I am going to talk about my diagnosis story because honestly, it's not something that I think I've really given the whole story to. If you don't know me, my name is Meg and I have had type 1 diabetes for a very long time, as you'll hear in this video. You can find me over Instagram, TikTok, website, wherever there's media, you can find me talking about diabetes, as well as my journey to becoming a registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator in order to help people with type 1 diabetes live happy, healthy, and active lives. Thank you guys so much for being here. Please like and subscribe. Okay, diagnosis story. Let's get into it. Where to begin? I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 5 years old. This is back in 1999 in August. I had a pretty lucky diagnosis story, and while I wasn't lucky to be diagnosed with diabetes, I was able to catch it pretty early. My dad also has type 1 diabetes. He was diagnosed when he was 28 years old. And my parents noticed a few very funny things happening. One of the biggest things is that I was always thirsty. Now, this was in August. I lived in North Carolina, so it was pretty hot. However, I was like excessively thirsty. So that is one of the first things that they noticed. But the night that I was actually diagnosed, I wet the bed 3 times. So I remember going to my parents' room and I remember being so embarrassed by this and having to keep going into my mom's room like, Mom, I wet the bed. And by that 3rd time, I think my parents were like, we should probably check her sugar. So because my dad had type 1 diabetes, he had a meter and they tested my blood sugar. I can't remember exactly what the number was, and neither could my mom or my dad, but I think it was like 300. So I wasn't in DKA. I wasn't, thank God. This is where I'm like, it was a lucky story. We were able to catch it before I went into DKA or before anything really serious happened. Remember being in the car driving to the hospital because I wanted to bring my pillow and sleep in the back seat because I was so tired. And I don't really remember a lot from the hospital, but I do have 2 really distinct memories. The first is practicing giving a shot to an orange. And I wasn't doing it myself until I was a little bit older, but just like getting used to like what that looked like and filling up the syringe and learning about the insulins and the sliding scales and all of that. I also have this second distinct memory, which is a really weird one, but it honestly still chokes me up to this day when I think about it. It's not because it's a sad moment, but I think it's because it's such a reflection of what it's like to live with diabetes, or my life with diabetes. I can't speak for others' experiences. I was 5 years old and I remember being this age, I hated crust on my sandwiches. If there was crust on a sandwich, I wasn't touching it, or I'd like eat around the crust, and like peel it off. And my mom, this isn't necessarily true, but my mom would always be like, Megan, you have to eat the crust. It's healthy. It's good for you. as parents do. I don't think crust is actually more healthy than the rest of the bread. I just hated it, didn't want to touch it. And I remember my parents, as we were leaving the hospital, we were checking out, my mom brought me up a tuna fish sandwich from the cafeteria. And she gave me the sandwich, and the sandwich obviously had crust on it because they're not going to cut off the crust in a cafeteria. And I remember thinking to myself, this is such a silly story, but it really does, like, I don't know, there's this like this feeling that I get when I think back on this memory of taking the tuna fish sandwich, and I remember saying to myself, you got to be healthy now. You have to eat the crust. You can't ask for anyone to take it off for you. Again, it's like a really silly memory, but it's kind of just that feeling of like, even at that age, even at 5 years old, I knew I was going to have to step up. You know, no one's going to take the crust off for me anymore. It was just this feeling, I've got to be a big girl now. And for anyone that's been diagnosed young, or if you're a parent watching this, I don't want to say this in the negative way, but there's only one way for it to come across. Diabetes does take part of your childhood. There's no questioning that. Like it takes so much from you. It takes so much freedom, spontaneity, gives you this huge responsibility. Even if you're a child and you have someone helping you out, you're taking on this huge burden that even as an adult is still really difficult to do. And I think that tuna story just like, so that was the emotion I felt, was this burden of responsibility and like, I've got to suck it up. I got to eat the crust. This is what I'm going to leave with. It took me around 20 years from that initial diagnosis for me to actually accept my diabetes. And accepting diabetes means something different to everyone. So I can't speak for you what that means, but for myself, what that really meant was mourning that life that I could have had. And I'm so happy, like there's so much of my life that I've been able to live with diabetes. I've been able to travel to some amazing places. I have incredible friends. I have an incredible family. I've been able to drink and party. I've been able to have amazing achievements, do really incredible things, run marathons, ultra marathons, play sports, see the world, just hang out with people. Like, life is still so good. But I would not be who I am today or where I am today without diabetes. And what I think it meant to accept diabetes for me was to stop being angry that I had a different life because of this. I had to let go of that, negativity that like, this sucks. Because it does, I'm not saying that, but because it takes up room for other really good things in my life. And it gives me more room to actually practically and logically approach my diabetes, which made all the difference in my management, which I will talk about a lot more in future videos. Wow, that got deep pretty fast. Thank you guys for listening. Please drop your diagnosis stories below if you feel comfortable sharing. I'd love to read them. And to all of you with type 1 diabetes, who care for somebody with type 1 diabetes, who love people with type 1 diabetes, thank you for being here. From the bottom of my heart, this community is amazing.